Good morning. My name is Chief Charlene Belleau from Eskedam First Nation. I'd like to introduce to you Dave Belleau from Eskedam, Irene Johnson, and Fred Johnson. We won't all be speaking, but Fred and Dave are here to support the women and the message that we have, Irene and I, for you today. So I want to thank the Coast Salish people for allowing us to come into their territory to do the work today. I was listening and am grateful for Shane's comments regarding our need to not only address the needs of our children, but also look out for the interests of our women. And our presentation is about violence against women. This is a picture of our community of Alki Lake and the community's commitment to violence against women. Eskedam's vision is that we strive to stand with dignity before our elders and our children, that we will not allow another generation of our women and children to fall victim to a cycle of violence and abuse. And we ask you to join in that commitment with us today as we go through our presentation. With a panel and the people that are before you today, many of you know the panel members. Fred is from The Honor of All, Dave, Irene, the story. Next click, please. Thank you. The Honor of All is the story of Alki Lake, and the Honor of One is the Honor of All. We've provided leadership in healing and sobriety for the past 40 years. The four of us, Dave, Fred, Irene, and I, enjoy at least 145 years of sobriety. You know, and that's just four of us. And I was thinking at some point, First Nations Health really should do a sobriety count when you come in to your conference like this and make a big announcement to celebrate every day and every year that you're sober. You know, because with that sobriety, health, you know, is sobriety. You know, our communities will go a long way by acknowledging your sobriety and your own healing. So we look forward to next year maybe doing that. Our healing journey included dealing not only with our residential school experience, but the sexual abuse and the incest within our own homes and within our community at Alki Lake. It was some tough work that we needed to do, but we've done it. The quality of the sobriety by dealing with how we've been hurting each other, how we've hurt our women, how we've hurt our children, we've had to do that work in order to maintain sobriety. I have Irene with me, who is from Eskedam from Alki Lake, that'll just give you a few minutes of her own story, just so that you know that this is what our women and our children are going through within our communities. Irene?
Good morning. I just want to thank you, for the invitation. I'm holding my own commitment stick. I just want to say I worked as a health director for 15 years. I know, the work that it takes in our communities to move forward and to actually start healing. One thing I was told a long time ago was I had to take my head out of the sand and heal myself, because I could no longer point to people and blame people for what happened in my life. If I was going to change, that change was up to me. So in '85, we made commitments to start looking at addictions. And what the commitment stick is you stake yourself to the ground. So when things get really tough, you can't run from it. It's really tough work, but it can be done. Why I'm here today is Charlene's going to share some statistics. And I look back at my own life, growing up in my own community. We've had sobriety, but in that sobriety, to maintain my sobriety, I had to look at my own life and, where I had been. I grew up in an alcoholic home like a lot of other people. I grew up in violence like a lot of other people. In my lifetime, from where I can remember it, 5 to 18, I had 30 offenders, most of them from our own community. I grew up with my mom and my grandmother, and they had alcohol addictions issues, and they couldn't really protect me from, the abuses that happened. But I guess why I'm here is not really to dwell on those abuses, because I had to do a lot of healing around them. I'm so grateful. When I was working as a health director, that I got to meet many of the chiefs who are forward-thinking people, who aren't afraid to step out of that box and start looking at what really needs to happen in our communities, because there's a lot of work to be done. Some of the things, when I look back on my healing and recovery with the abuses that happened, a lot of traditional healing is what I went through, because really it doesn't have to cost money to heal. It just takes people who are willing to be there and support our community members. I've gone through many sweat losses where I talked about, what happened to me. One of the best things that happened to me, and I was wishing Arthur could come with us to speak. Arthur is one of the guys from our community. He carries a pipe today, and he's been sober for over 30 years. But Arthur and I had the opportunity to sit in a circle and deal with what had happened. And the best thing I heard was, "I'm sorry." That's what I needed to hear. And I also needed my chief and council to be able to stand beside me, because it's not just me. When we looked around in our community, most of the women my age, and some younger and some older, had similar experiences, a lot with the similar men. But my belief today, and what keeps me moving forward and keeps me positive, is our men need to be healed also. They didn't choose to be offenders. How they got there is what they've learned. I didn't choose to be a victim. I didn't choose, to have the lifestyle that I did, but I did. What keeps me going today is I know I can change that lifestyle. I have 8 grandchildren. I have beautiful granddaughters that I would fight for today. That's why I hold this commitment stick, because I need to be strong enough within myself to deal with whatever it is that happens in our community. And I worked as a health director. You're expected to do everything. I know that job, and I know it well. The chiefs, you're expected to do everything also. I sit on council, so I understand that. I guess my message here is I would like, the more people we have committed to start talking about the sexual abuse and the incest that's happening in our communities, the further ahead we're going to be. We make that commitment to not be afraid. When I came here this morning, I was afraid, but I have my stick, and I have to stand here. And I want to thank leaders like Doug and Wayne and, all the men that I've worked with that are so positive, and they want to be there to support and help. That's the kind of leadership we need to see in our communities, is where we're unafraid. We need to step forward. Because a lot of people are dying out there. Today, people are dying out there. It's like the pink elephant in the room. nobody wants to talk about. You know, we're scared that if we talk about the pink elephant, we're going to start dying and get suffocated. Well, our people are dying and being suffocated already. So we need to stand up and start speaking and looking at our own issues in our communities. That's where it's going to start. And looking at the traditional cultural ways that don't cost money, where we can start helping our people. Last week, I took 8 young men into the sweat. I work as mental health support now in my community, and they all wanted to deal with residential schools because they didn't understand it. So we went through the sweat and we had them do forgiveness round. We had them talk about the deaths in their lives. And when they came out, they really felt good. Now they want to have another sweat and they want their families to come. I know it doesn't cost money. It doesn't have to. We can do the healing work. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you. I know we don't have much time, but I want to thank you all, and I want to, praise the health directors because I know the hard work that you're doing. I understand it, and especially for our chiefs and councils. I want to thank you all for the work and the commitment. I've been in this for over 15 years. I've been coming to these gatherings right from day one, and I really see the big change in people willing to move ahead. Sukin, Cook's Cham, and thank you for hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene, for sharing your story. When you look at one individual that's been hurt 20 or 30 or 40 times by 30 or 40 different offenders in your own community, but you also look at those offenders having been violated 20 or 30 or 40 times within the same community, it helps you to know the extent of the abuse and violence that we have to deal with within our own communities. And we want to be able to support you in that work that you need to do within your own communities. So when we address violence against women, our message is that is our work. We need to do that. Next slide, please. In terms of research and data, Irene mentioned that we'd be talking about some information that we know. There is a lot of research and data out there. But the key that I want you to see here is this is the data we need to see, not just what we hear in the media. I remember going to a Union of BC Indian Chiefs meeting where the chief coroner was making a report on the child death reviews, and I was a chief back then. I've served 3 terms. But he talked about the disproportionate numbers of Aboriginal children that were dying in your communities. I remember him talking like this. We need to talk with each other like this. These are your children. 44% of the suicides, the risk factors of those children was known. 75% of the deaths were in urban areas and 25% in the northern regions. When we look at the Department of Justice victims of crime statistics, 86% of children are in female lone parent households. Moms are raising those children alone. The majority of women report both a history of childhood sexual abuse by multiple perpetrators. 25% to 50% are sexually abused as children. Sexual abuse is committed by someone in the victim's immediate family and within extended family. When we look at the Murdered and Missing Aboriginal Women's National Operational Overview Report from the RCMP, this is from all law enforcement agencies across the country. 90% of the 1,017 Aboriginal homicide victims had a previous relationship with their killer. 69% of the homicides occurred specifically in the victim's home or the home she shared with the offender. 66% of the homicides are under the age of 35 years old. They're very young when they're dying. The average age of the offenders is 35 years. Very young. 89% of all cases of the accused were males. When we look at these statistics and data, we need to acknowledge that this is we're talking about ourselves here. We're not talking about anybody else, but this is what's happening in our families and in our communities. And again, we put this information up because it's data that we need to see. This is not what you might normally see when you go and open the book, but this is what we need you to see so that we can start looking at a pathway forward to deal with these issues. Next. When we look at the costs, to the government, to the taxpayers, it's huge what we're going through. Commissions, inquiries, research, murdered and missing cost millions. Picton, for example, the cost to the taxpayers and the government, not including his current incarceration, it costs $70 million to investigate him, another $15 million to prosecute him, another $1.5 million to have an inquiry. The current cost of a homicide is anywhere between $25,000 and $2 million, depending on the complexity. And this doesn't even include salary dollars. So when we look at the costs, to the public, never mind our losses of our women and our girls, the cost is huge to all of us in the losses that we have. Next. We need to move beyond the research and the data. There is a lot of research and data there already. We need to acknowledge the family and the interpersonal violence within our own communities and take action for our children and our families. Next. In terms of opportunities going forward, we want to be able to, within Askedim, to take action and be able to move ahead without talking about what is it that we're going to do. We'll host a Leadership and Chiefs Forum and gathering on June 9th to 11th at Alclay Lake in a traditional setting, away from the cell phones, away from the Blackberries, to address violence so that our men can assume their roles as caregivers of our children, our families, and communities. Please let Dave, Irene, Joyce, our health director, know that you're interested in attending, and we can take care of that here. Askedim is working to establish a center of learning and support so that we're a resource to communities to address the violence against women and girls. In closing, next slide. Irene talked to you about the commitment stick. We ask and come before you today with a request for all hereditary chiefs, grand chiefs, and chiefs that are in attendance here today and that are committed to live violence-free as leaders and to stopping violence within your own communities, to come forward and pick up a commitment stick and stand with us before your health directors and your community members. So Joyce, Dave, and Fred, and Irene will give the commitment sticks. And we ask you again to join us on June 9th to the 11th at Alclay Lake to stop this cycle of violence and abuse. I want to make sure and thank Shane Point for his comments this morning, where we need to, as a priority, take care of our children. So important, and the words from Mary Ellen, but also the need to take care of our women and to be able to deal with violence against women. So in closing, we're going to do a song. So we ask all of the hereditary chiefs that are here Can you step forward, the Grand Chiefs and the Chiefs, and stand in front here with us if you're committed to live violence-free and to be able to deal with violence against women. And with the health directors and the staff that are here, I want you to be able to witness and see your leaders come forward so that when you begin dealing with violence and abuse within your own communities, that you have the support of these chiefs in front of you. And again, we thank the hereditary chiefs, the Grand Chiefs, and the chiefs for their commitments to live violence-free and to stop this cycle of violence and abuse.